Welcome to the Blue Star Connection podcast with your host, Guy Lacroix. All right, so that's, it's not quite a Joe Rogan intro, but it's going to have to do for right now. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to my North American premiere podcast. In fact, my worldwide premiere podcast. So let's see how this thing develops, and will come with me on this journey. Before we begin, I just want to slow things down a little bit. Too much excitement right here, so let's do a little chanting and go inside, and we'll get this going. Just listen to the sound of the bell. Close your eyes if you want. Focus on the third eye. Take a deep breath. Blow it out. There is an essence that binds and sustains and is all life. This essence, this living presence, this is the oneness that you are. This is the oneness that you are. Shapeless, formless, and eternal are you, with no boundary and no container. You were never born, so you can never die, with nothing to grow into and nothing to become, for you are all life. You are all life. There is no separation between you and me, the air that we breathe, the sun that shines upon us, or the earth that we walk upon. All life is one, always has been and always will be. And this oneness that is the air and the earth, this oneness that is the seasons for the harvest and the laughter of the children, this is the oneness that you are. This is the oneness that you are. This cannot be taught to you, for it is not to be understood. For you see, this can only be experienced, appreciated, and realized. Accept this and be free. Accept this and be free. Accept this, all of this, and be. Just be. Well, good evening, everyone. We just recently, earlier this month, January 8th, Christopher, the founding and officiating minister of the Order of the Blue Star, celebrated 38 years. And my participation, my involvement with the Order of the Blue Star spans back almost 36 years now. So it was on a fateful fateful evening on January 1990 that Christopher Timms and his one-man traveling show rolled into town. And in retrospect, I never thought about it before, but thinking about it recently, I kind of feel like the teachings found me, at that time for a reason. And you know how they say sometimes when the pupil is ready, the teacher appears. And we're going to unpack that a little bit just to see exactly what I mean. So tonight my topic is living the spiritual life. That's the topic that came to me when I was preparing my thoughts. So let's begin at the beginning, or we'll go chronologically a little bit. So for me, the first, let's say, foray or adventure into the spiritual world inadvertently began when I was about 10 or 11 years old. At the time, my parents had recently gotten involved in TM meditation, transcendental meditation with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, you know, the Beatles guru, out in Rishikesh. So in the late 60s, all four of the Beatles traveled out to India, Rishikesh, and they hung out with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. So, you know, back in the 80s, TM was big, and so my parents had gotten initiated, and all I remember is one weekend, they brought us kids there to some, you know, it was hosted at someone's house, the weekly meditation, and they brought all four kids of us, my brother and my two sisters and myself, and we all got initiated in the TM, just the basic technique, not the advanced CDs where the flying Buddha. Anyway, and at first I thought, when I was recollecting that, I thought, okay, it was just me and my older sister, but over Christmas I was talking to my younger sister, 2 years younger, and she said, no, all four of us got initiated. So anyway, you know, in subsequent weeks and months, I remember us as a family having meditation sessions at home, and you know, but at that age, it didn't really stick, and I think you know, eventually it just fizzed out and fell to the wayside, and you know, but you know, the seed was sown, and I still remember my mantra, even though I never really gave it much thought after that. And then as we move along, I'd say the next big event in my life, I mean, it's not an event, it's just another kind of identifying point where I started getting to know myself a bit more. So yeah, around when I was 18, my parents had separated when I was 16, and by that time I was sometimes staying in the summer over at my dad's place, and you know, he was often gone for the weekends, and he had amassed a big library of books, a lot of New Age books. So I loved to read, still do, And I would just browse through the books and read whatever I could. But at that time, there was a particular book that made a big impression on me, and started, I guess you could say, like the inner journey. And it was it's the book by Dr. Joseph Murphy, The Powers of Your Subconscious Mind. And happen to have a copy of this one, a classic. This is a later edition. I lost the original one, but anyway, so that book was, for me, was it was an insight into that the world around me, my experiences, my reality, were somewhat influenced and shaped by my inner thoughts, beliefs, fears, aspirations. So what you think, what you feel, what your beliefs are, becomes your signature. It becomes like, it has a charge. And like a magnet, you attract more of that into your life. And that becomes your reality. So anyway, so for me, just the concept that I had a say or a choice in what was happening, how my life was unfolding. I could be the victim, or I could take responsibility. And so that started a whole new round of exploration for myself, reading some more books. I started amassing a library of New Age books myself, meditation, teachings of the masters, crystals, past lives, astral travel, you name it. I also started getting involved in my community here in Ottawa, locally. So we had a nice little magazine, a New Age magazine. It was called The Tone Magazine, and it came out every month. And in it was a directory of all the practitioners in the area, massage therapists. You can find out conferences on meditation or workshops, what was going on. And it's actually during that time. So I would say that, like, from the initial 18 to 22, I was doing that kind of stuff. Also finished, being at school at university. I was taking yoga classes and got into meditation. And I was participating in the events in the local community. I would look in the Tone directory. So it was in that Tone magazine on, I guess it was early 1990, that there was an advertising. There was, I think it was, there was probably a little description, a little article, like Christopher Timms was coming to Ottawa, and he was doing a Friday night intro at the Ottawa Public Library. So the intro was free, and it was about sound healing and light and sound meditation. So to me, that sounded just like fantastic. And I want to back up to it. Up to this point, my realizations had been more intellectual. So I was filling my head with all these concepts, all this theory. I had a pretty good idea what enlightenment was, but it was just a notion, a concept. at the mental level. And already I had grown dissatisfied with I was tired of just reading more books and filling my head with knowledge. I was already having a sense of what's more. I wanted to live it, to experience the truth, experience the spiritual life, not just read about it. And I've always been more of a pragmatic fellow. I like teachings that I can make work in my life. I can just, show me the technique. I'll learn it, and if I can see results in my life, I like it. I was getting tired already of just accumulating knowledge for knowledge's sake. It needed to be pragmatic and applicable in my life to make my life better, to make me a better person, to help me awaken and remember who and what I am, So that's why I say the teachings of the Order of the Blue Star, they came into my life right at that crux where I was kind of wanting more direct experience for myself. So that's why I say that, the timing of Christopher rolling into town on that fateful January 1990, I realize now it was a synchronicity, but it was meant to be. It was meant to be for where I was at that point. And I was, as we'll see, I was forever changed from those experiences, but we'll get into that shortly. So back to the tone review and the upcoming weekend workshop. So at that time, like I said, I was 22, a student, didn't have much money, so the free intro seemed like a good thing. I had, nothing to lose. So it was easy for me to, the Ottawa Public Library was just 20 minutes car ride. So easy for me to get down there, park the car, and walk up to the library. And when I walked in, there was this tall, big, tall, long blonde hair dude walking the hallway with a striking look. And I didn't realize he was the speaker of the teacher for the evening, but and then sure enough it was Christopher, so it made an impression right at the start. And then the evening intro started, and Christopher described the upcoming weekend. And with Christopher, it's never just about describing the workshop and stuff. There were excerpts and stories about his life, extraordinary stuff, and so you can imagine I was totally captivated, and I could totally relate to this guy. I mean, he was 32 at the time. A young man into the same things as I was, fitness, working out at the gym, staying healthy, fit on the bike. He was drummer in a rock and roll band. I mean, what's not to like? And I totally relate to that kind of guy more than some dude in a white tunic or where you would see a traditional spiritual teacher. So I liked again. It was right away. It was a very pragmatic teaching, right down to the teacher. So I made a point to attend the weekend workshop. Now the Saturday was it was $50 each. There was the Light and Sound Healing was a Saturday, and that was $50. And now it's now called Sound Energy Dynamics, but back then it was that. And Light and Sound Healing, Soul Travel. That one was on Sunday, also $50. And that one had that one I was very curious about. I wasn't interested in healing at that time. I just wanted the mystical stuff. And so I said, okay, yeah, I could swing that $50. So I made a point to attend the workshop on the Sunday morning. And I get there Sunday morning, and it's at someone's house. I forget who. And someone was hosting the whole weekend, as it was often the case back then. And I wasn't feeling the best. I had partied the night before, and I was 22, remember, and I had a bit of a headache, a little hungover, tired. Anyway, so I show up there, and there was already about 12 to 15 people there, and they were a little surprised to see me as a new arrival, because all of them had taken the workshop the day before, the Light and Sound Healing, and they were surprised to see someone just show up on the second day, and they said, "How come you?" I said, "Well, I was interested in this one." And anyway, so we get going, and Christopher is talking about all the good stuff, and early on in that morning, at one point, I think he was talking about something along the lines of, you can never know someone until you've been in their shoes. And as he was saying that, he happened to be looking directly into my eyes. And after a while, I started feeling my consciousness was expanding, and I was just like beyond my body, blissed out, like an expanded consciousness, and I was just feeling amazing. The headache was gone, the fatigue, and I don't know how long that lasted, but it was like it was something that an energy that shook me and woke me up, and I'm not sure, but it's probably something similar to what in Indian tradition is often called a Shaktipat, like a transmission of energy through the eyes, or a sharing. Anyway, so that was like a very, very tangible experience of who I am beyond the body. And at that point I was like, I was in, and no turning back. I wanted more of that. I wanted to have some more of those experiences, and I knew I was on the right path, the right direction. So the rest of the weekend was just amazing, and and then Christopher left, and I was finishing up my degree in university at that time, and and Christopher was scheduled to come back in April, like 3-4 months later. So he came back in April 1990, and this time I took the whole weekend, even the Light and Sound Healing, and I got my the equivalent of my SED Level 1 certification, and I still have my original tuning forks, the blue steel. Well, they're in the case now, but the blue Sheffield steel, which they don't make them anymore. But they were in this original wooden case. And a couple years ago, Christopher was gracious enough to send me this. He said, get with the times, and eventually I'm going to order myself, the aluminum set. Once Christopher gets organized with the orders, I'll do that. But an interesting note is that back in the day, we didn't have hockey pucks yet, even though we're here in Canada, we're the home of hockey. But so we would bang the forks on the side of the wooden box. So you can see why it's all worked in. Amazing, the good thing they were steel, because they survived. Anyway, so that's a little. Hope you don't mind. I'm doing a little show and tell as I go along. So yes, April 90, do the workshop, do the whole thing, and then Christopher announces that he's preparing that summer. He's preparing a bike adventure. Would I like to join him? Duh. Twist my arm, dude. I'm there. So the idea was that we would bike down the West Coast and then all across the States, and it'd be a biking trip, and I may not have known it consciously, but it would end up being living the spiritual life, or getting a taste of it. So after that workshop in April, Christopher went off, and then I started preparing myself for the upcoming trip. I had to wrap up my university degree. I had started a summer job. I was 1 month into a landscaping job, so I quit that. Packed my stuff, and then I think I was heading down by June to. We were meeting sometime in June, I guess, in Seattle. So I drove down to the border. So I'm in Ottawa, Canada, and we're just 1 hour north of upstate New York, like Ogdenburg, and about 3 hours from Syracuse. Montreal's here, Toronto, Ottawa. Anyway, and so that I remember, driving down. I think it was a Friday night, and I had the flight was in Syracuse, and I was meeting. I was driving down to Syracuse and meeting another fellow who was joining us on the trip, Alex, young fellow like me, and I had a little snafu at the border. So I arrived at the border, U.S. border, and basically I was turned around because they thought I didn't have enough money, enough funds on me to prove that I could subsist for 2 months. And fair enough, I probably had like $100 or something, and that I don't know if I had credit cards at that time and stuff. Pretty naive. Anyway, so I hightailed it back to Ottawa. In a panic, went to see my parents, my mom and my stepdad. And anyway, we scrounged together about $600. Then I don't remember if I went back that same evening or early the next morning, but I made it through. Met up with Alex in Syracuse, and then we flew out to meet up with Christopher in Seattle. So we were flying Syracuse to Seattle. I met up with 8 or 9 other participants, So the idea was that one of the ladies in the group had graciously volunteered to be the designated driver. So she would drive the van. It wasn't a motorhome, anything fancy. That it was just a Ford van. And the idea was that every morning we would look at the map and see, okay, what's the next town about 20 miles away, and that's where we'll meet for breakfast or for lunch. So we would so she would drive ahead, and we would bike to there, down the 101 Highway 101 on the coast, and we'd repeat the same thing after lunch. We'd scout another destination, a town 20 or 30 miles down, and we'd try to bike to there, and we would coordinate with her to meet us there. And then we would set up camp. It was all camping in campsites. And of course, it wasn't just any old camping. I mean, Christopher had rubber with him. Among other things, he had a copper tubing pyramid, all ready to go. The thing was exactly the 51.3 degrees as the Great Giza Pyramid. So often, almost every night when there was no rain, we would set that up. You just had to plug the joints in the 90 degrees, and no sides, just the framing of the pyramid. And Mr. Light and Sound in the middle, and we would all sleep in the base of the pyramid. It was about maybe 10 feet square under the stars. Isn't that amazing? And then the juicing. Like, we had a juicer. We were doing mostly vegetable juices. So wherever we could, every day we would juice. We'd plug in. We'd sometimes go into the restroom, one of the restrooms, because there was electrical power. We would juice our carrots, beets, and spinach and everything. And the people must have been wondering what the heck are they doing. So we're doing fresh juices. We were doing daily H2O2 shots, hydrogen peroxide, H2O2. At that time, it was the latest, greatest oxygen therapy. The great way to oxygenate your blood, your cells. So when it was nasty. Like, we would start with 2 drops in water one morning, and then increase by 2 every. So by the time you get to a dozen drops, it started tasting like a metallic aftertaste, and it left you a little. Imagine all the oxygen hitting your system. It left us a little dizzy, and so Christopher and I had a contest who could take the most drops and stuff like that. But in retrospect, it was probably not the wisest thing, because I think it wasn't the most stable form of oxygen, and it was probably creating a lot of free radicals. But we survived. We were also growing wheatgrass, of course, in the van. We had these empty containers of protein powder jugs, plastics, which we would cut in half, put a little earth, and grow the wheatgrass in there. I turned vegetarian that trip, and it was baptism by fire. So for 2 months on the road, it was like, if you ever wanted to convert to change your diet, your lifestyle, this was it. And of course, just being in the presence and the demonstration had a big impact. as we would travel down the coast, the first part of the trip was more cycling intensive. We were like from Seattle into Oregon into California. We biked every inch of that highway right into the northern California, into north of San Francisco, into the Redwoods, the Redwood National Forest. And then after that, we started driving more. We had to get, well, we were running out of money, running out of time, so we started, because we had to cross back the whole continental U.S. So we were running out of time and money, and so we started driving more. And well, we would hit a couple of key cities too along the way. Like we spent some time in Sedona, Arizona, and whenever he could, Christopher would line something up at the local bookstore or crystal shop, and to give a talk. And so we got to participate in a lot of those events, impromptu events along the way. We spent a lot of time in Santa Fe, New Mexico. That was, we'd like probably stay for a couple of days to a week, and then I think on the way through we went through Texas. We hit Hot Springs, Arkansas, where the crystals are. And during that last segment, what we would do is we would bike like for a couple hours. Like, let's say we got to a point where there's a nice stretch of highway. So Christopher and I and whoever else wanted, we would go do that segment by bicycle, and then the van would pick us up. But we were doing a lot of distances driving too, because just to get back to the East Coast. So we got back to the East Coast in Wilmington, Delaware, and we went to Christopher's parents' house. Got to meet his mom and his dad. I don't know if his sister might have been visiting, but anyway, I don't know if we stayed there overnight or just don't remember. But anyways, that was the tail end of our trip. So a lot of people had left beforehand wherever they were, and for me, that was me and another person were heading up north back to Canada. So that was the end of the bike trip. And my fantastic adventure for that summer. So I got back home that fall, and then became the now what do I do? So I had to pick up the pieces. I had left everything behind. I just graduated in economics. I had zero interest in working in that domain, but I needed to survive, put some money on the table, pay my rent. So, it started a couple years of just figuring stuff out, trying to integrate the teachings while surviving, while discovering myself, gaining my self-confidence, etc., etc. And, so I was doing all kinds of Joe jobs here and there and just trying to integrate everything. And eventually I I fell upon a job, working in a health food store, and that was amazing. The people were great, and yeah, it was a good influence for me. And a lot of there was a few people there at the store that were had traveled to India or were planning to, and I had always been interested in India, and I had read a lot of books, about the Indian masters and gurus and all the spiritual knowledge and the teachings over there, including the classic autobiography of a yogi, et cetera, et cetera. And then it started, forming the idea in my head that, hey, maybe I could go there too and check it out. So yeah, I think I was 26. I flew out to India and I hit Thailand, Nepal, and India, and I spent I was gone for 4 months, but I spent 3 months in India. And I had no agenda, and for me it was like my agenda was wide open to whatever would come on my way, and I would let myself be guided by the people I met and the stories I heard. Of course, there was some places I wanted to check out. So one of the first places I went to was Pune in India. It's right central India, and that's where the ashram of Osho, Bhagwan Rajneesh, was and is. So I went there to visit and check it out. And wouldn't you know it, the day I got there was the anniversary of his death. He had passed away just the year before. So the whole ashram was kind of not really busy, not active. And, I didn't get a chance to participate that much. And I think I hung around for a couple of days. And, there was classes and workshops that were given by his students, his disciples. And I could have certainly gotten involved in all that, but for some reason it wasn't sticking to me. It was just, water off my back. It wasn't calling me. And I did notice, and I did hear that a number of his inner circle, his close disciples, had moved on, had gravitated to another guru, and this guy was this older fellow, Punjaji, Papaji, and they called him, and he was in Lucknow, more northern India, and then just a large industrial Indian town. So I made my way over there, and I found the ashram, and what was happening is there was a daily satsang. So Punjaji every morning at a certain time would have a satsang, and we could all go into the room and spend some time with him, and he would talk about stuff. And you could see there was a whole hierarchy of so the senior disciples in the inner circle had the places in front, right at the feet of the master, and then behind them the newer people, and so on and so forth. Except if you were there, if it was your first visit, or you were there your first 3 days, you had the opportunity to write a question, write your question, and they would submit it to Punjaji, and then he at some point in the satsang he would go through the papers, and if he happened to pick your name or your question, then you could go up closer to him and interact with them. So I said, oh, well, what the heck, I got nothing to lose, and I am a sincere seeker, and so I had written something down. I think it was something along the lines like, I know I am more than this physical self, but I want to know by experience, not just by intellect. I don't want to just know intellectually. I want to know with all my being, you know. Anyway, so one of the days it was my turn. Like he was reading my question, and so I went up just to be closer to him. And again, it was just interesting to see all the ceremony and the rituals, which I didn't buy into it. Like whenever whenever they would go up to the master's feet, they would, prostrate themselves and, bow down. And again, I wasn't inclined to do that. And when it was my turn I just went up, I looked him in the eye and I nodded, and he nodded back, and I sat down like cross-legged, and he, he was very kind. He didn't care about if you had bowed down to him or not, and that's when I realized it wasn't for him. They were just, it wasn't him that was expecting that. It was just stuff that people do. And he treated me with kindness and respect, and he answered my question, something along the lines, he said, yeah, don't worry, you will, and so, yeah, it was a nice experience. And then again, I could have stayed there longer, but I wasn't inclined to stay. I wasn't, nothing holding me there. I want to go back to when I was at the Osho ashram, Bhagwan Rajneesh. I also felt that, Bhagwan wasn't there anymore, so that the teachings were not living anymore. And I felt like, I don't want to say it was a dead teaching, but it just didn't have the same energy of, the lead teacher being there. And Pujaji was there, but it wasn't my thing. I didn't, I don't forget, I had already had all this time and experience in the Order of the Blue Star and the teachings and the eternal teachings, that I already knew that you don't need the guru, the way shower. It's just about yourself waking up, realizing that ultimately enlightenment is a joke. We're already enlightened. We just have to realize it and remember it. Reintegrate that part of ourselves. But it was fun for me to go through and see and experience those things in those times and those places. And another place that I ended up going, and that was I really enjoyed that. So after that, I went to Bodh Gaya. Bodh Gaya, near Varanasi in India, again in the north. Bodh Gaya is not the birthplace of the Buddha, but where the Buddha was enlightened. And where there's the famous, I forget the name of the tree, but the tree is there where apparently he sat for days until he figured it all out. Banyan tree? Bodhi tree, yes. I was going to say the Bodhi tree. I don't know if, but then I thought, no, it's too much like Buddha. But yes, the tree, still there. And what was interesting there is they teach the Vipassana meditation technique. So the Vipassana is the teaching directly from the Buddha. That's the way his technique and meditation technique passed down, since 500 BC. And they have like an institute there, and for a small donation of whatever you want, you can do a retreat, a Vipassana retreat. And so I signed up for, I think it was a 6-day retreat, 6 to 10 days, and you have a little place to stay. I shared a room with some other fellow, and basically, those of you that might have done the Vipassana before, it's quite strict and austere. So you have you're meditating, like you start your day waking up like at 5 in the morning, go for a 1-hour meditation, and then it's 1 hour conscious walking. And I mean conscious, like every step you intend to take it, and you're conscious, you're not daydreaming, you're in your body taking that step, conscious. And then there's a morning tea and breakfast, and then it's another round of meditation, more conscious walking, and then there's lunch, and then there's kind of a satsang or just a discussion with the lead teacher, and that's the only time we can talk. Everything else is in silence. Even when you're in your room, you're not supposed to talk. And then after lunch, there's another round of meditation and walking meditation, and there's a free time. Of course, free time, you're not talking, you're just not walking or meditating. And the meditation is you're expected to sit cross-legged and not move for the whole hour. And let me tell you, like, it gets really painful. You start having your knee, your butt, your back, and while you're sitting like that, you're breathing and you're focusing your attention on just below the navel, the breath in and out. And the first couple of days it was excruciating, to the pain of just sitting there still. And the idea was, you would let's say you're having a knee pain, then you would not ignore it. You would put your attention and you acknowledge the knee pain. I acknowledge the pain, and it's there. And you breathe and you keep doing, and eventually it would disappear. And eventually, you start having these blissful moments where you don't feel any pain anymore in your body, and you're just energy. And anyway, so that was very good experiences, very enlightening, shall we say. Now where do I want to go? so that was the so yeah, so I left after that. I left there, and I remember when I was back out on the street, I met up with some people, and one of them said, like, "Dude, what did you do?" He's like, your eyes are just glowing, you know. And it's like, you know, I was still in that state. And then I traveled some more because it's fun in India. Well, okay, it's a lot of work traveling in India. There's so many people. You get tossed in like sardines in the buses and the trains, and it's chaotic. It's noisy. It's terrible, really. But the people are just beautiful. They're nice. They're sincere. And what's really interesting about in India, wherever you go, there's these sadhus walking around, hanging around at the train station or by the river, by the Ganges. And by the sadhus, I mean those spiritual, yogis. They're using ancient yogic techniques of austerity and depriving themselves of food or whatever creature comforts. But usually they're the ones, that have the long, messy dreadlocks, just a loincloth for clothing, and often smoking their ganja. And it's quite the contrast with the religious Indian culture, with their caste system, and everything is prim and proper, and I don't know, they're sort of caught up in the wheel of life, and then these dudes are just like laid back, and it's really cool to see. Like it's like in our society, and we don't have that. We have we'll have a homeless person on the side of the road, and it's a different thing. But over there, it's, yes, they're homeless, but that's their purpose, and it's a spiritual. So everything is about spirituality. Like it radiates self-awareness, a yearning to awaken, and so that's that part. But then there's also the very, in India it's very religious, just like here, and we have the Catholic and Christian ceremonies and rituals at church and all that stuff. Well, over there they have their gods that they pray, and the temples they go to, and it's just as religious. It's just a lot more complex and interesting as far as I'm concerned. But plus they have the reincarnation, which is really cool. So, but they're still caught up, in the samsara, and let me see what I wanted to focus on. What do you got here? Okay, I'll start wrapping up, but just to another few thoughts on. So when I came back from India, soon after I started a new chapter in my life. We became pregnant, my girlfriend at the time, and it was the birth of my son in '95. So that all of a sudden, that sort of I had just gone back from India. Now it was just like, okay, now I got to get going, get the gears going. And that's why I had to start a new chapter and trying to figure out what I'm going to do as a career. And eventually I would end up going in IT. But along the way, I just want to touch briefly. I also got involved in a couple other teachings. One of them is it was another light and sound teaching. It's called the Kuan Yin. So it's a Chinese teaching, female Chinese master, and I mean it's the light and sound. It's just a different. They were very strict. So just to show you, so you had to be vegetarian, but also almost vegan. You couldn't eat any cheese, and if you wanted to have cheese, it had to be without the rennet. So the rennet is the stomach lining of the animal, or it's used to process the cheese. There's rennet usually in it, well, an animal product. Anyway, so the meditation practice in itself was fairly strict. It was they asked you to do 2.5 hours a day of meditation. So 2 hours on the light and half an hour on the sound. And you know, as much as it's good stuff, it just becomes overwhelming. You're cramming. You start cramming in. Oh, I got 20 minutes to do, and you're just doing it for time after a while, and you're half asleep, and like Christopher says, it's like it's better to do 30 seconds of intense contemplation than 2 hours of where in that 2 hours there's maybe just a couple moments where you were. So there was that, and again that the teaching didn't stick to me. I always came back to the Order of the Blue Star and the teachings, the eternal teachings, and that's what rang true for me. And also I was curious about Eckankar, because Christopher came from that group before, and so I got involved with the local chapter. And it's interesting. They chant the Hugh, and the books by Paul Twitchell. It's all fascinating stuff with the inner masters. And but again, by the time I got involved with them, Paul Twitchell was gone. I think it was Harold Clamp who. It wasn't even clear if he was a real master, and then, so the teachings disintegrated, and Proof and Point, a couple years ago, it's called it's the religion of Eckankar. Anyway, so not to bash anything, but there's a difference between religious and spiritual. Religion, you look to someone outside of you to save you. Spirituality, you look inside yourself, you look to yourself to connect with the universe or with the oneness, with God. Call it what you want. So, big difference. Spirituality is you take self-responsibility for your life, for awakening. You don't just do rituals and wait for someone to come and save you. And another practice I dabbled with shortly was Falun Gong, Falun Dafa. So that's another Chinese teaching. Basically, it's Qigong, and the practice is you hold positions like Qigong circles around the tree kind of thing for minutes. And it's so usually we get together in the park and do that. I quite enjoyed it until the time it got political. Because after a few years, it became persecuted in China. The movement became so popular in China, like hundreds or thousands of people would get out in the streets and practice Falun Dafa in the park, and it became a movement. And the Communist Party was threatened that it was taking over. It was a threat to the Communist Party. Too many people getting organized together, and etc. So they started persecuting them, jailing them, and then here in Canada, or I'm sure all over the world outside of China, the Falun Dafa practitioners would start going demonstrating at the local Chinese embassies, and they would, they would ask us to do our practices there on the side of the street by the building, and then it's like, nah, it's getting too political. It's not my fight. So I kind of went back to the Blue Star. I never left the Blue Star, but I always renewed. Anyway, so in reflection, also it's what I was thinking. The spiritual life. Well, I can only tell you from my perspective and my life, and for me, I've come to realize the spiritual life is. It's not really what you do; it's how you do it, and basically, it's all about whatever you do to experience. Ultimately, the ultimate experience is Jivan Mukti, final freedom and liberation. So it doesn't matter what you do as long as it gets you along to that realization sooner or later. And Christopher once said that the greatest obstacle to the one's spiritual journey, and I was surprised when he said that, is discouragement. Discouragement. And then I realized it's true, because in the beginning you're all excited, you do your spiritual exercises, but as time goes on, you can be left wondering, okay, well, when is the fireworks going to show up? When is my life going to be completely changed? And and it doesn't work that way. It's yes, you can have some experiences here and there, but I'm realizing it's just a gradual awakening, a consciousness expansion, expansion of your consciousness, little awakenings, and you can't give it an agenda or a time. I remember, at one point I kind of make a plan, and it's okay, by this time I'll be enlightened, and it's just silly. Like, it's just, you have to let it go. And when it's, there's highs and lows, but you just stay in the middle path, and you keep trucking along, biking along, and that's all we can do. So, thanks everyone for being here, for listening. Appreciate it. And I'm going to wish you all a good night. I'm going to open the Q&A. If there's questions, comments, violent reactions. Question, comments? Hope it wasn't too boring. Oh, thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Suzanne. Okay, well, I think it's a wrap.